Hi, everyone. I found a couple of articles that I want to really kind of get into a deep dive into, and I'd like you to come along with me. It goes into that ongoing series of videos that I've made about the changing nature of warfare and our Navy, specifically our Navy's place in it right now, our Navy and Marine Corps and Air Force's place in it right now. This is specifically regarding Taiwan, a hypothetical invasion of Taiwan. I'm calling it Battle of the Six Seas, the future naval fight for the Southwest Pacific. One of the articles I found was called Taiwan and Mahan, What Determines Seapower? The historical data of naval and amphibious battles indicates that the prevailing nightmare of a Chinese surprise attack on Taiwan, combining a large and hurriedly concentrated amphibious force, is extremely unlikely. I agree with this. A survey of every war with a significant naval campaign since 1200 validates the theory of 19th century naval strategist Alfred Thayer Mahan that a decisive naval battle dramatically increases the prospect of winning a war. Mahan emphasized that a nation's success is achieved by focusing on sea power and spurning distractions, such as the loss of insecure island bases. Naval historian Admiral Herbert Richmond agreed with Mahan that once a sea control is attained, islands can be easily recaptured. For the United States, this means it must resist the temptation to use its blue water fleet to intercept a sudden Chinese amphibious assault on Taiwan proper, and instead of concentrate on luring China's fleet into a decisive battle on more favorable circumstances. Although the assuming of a Chinese escort fleet in the Taiwan Strait made vulnerable by its need to optimize the protection of an amphibious force, it is a tempting target for a concentrated attack of a carrier air wing and sea and sub-base standoff weapons. It will be a battle at a time and place of Chinese choosing, and therefore likely a trap. I agree with that. The article goes into some of the more specifics regarding what the Chinese specific invasion would be. And one of the things I do want to just specifically point out, the conventional wisdom, which is almost certainly in alignment with Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy's wishful thinking, is naval historian Julian Corbert's proposition that a local and temporary sea control is sufficient for producing the strategic effect. Therefore, there is no need for a decisive strategic naval battle. The widely accepted proposition is conceptually flawed and falsified by the historical data. It is and it isn't. We're going to go a little bit deep into this, because the United States is actually following the strategy of the smaller basing. China blasts U.S. plan to set up bases, missile units in Japan, Philippines in the event of a Taiwan contingency. This article goes specifically into the Marines who will be using let me change it up here real quick, MLR, a Marine Littoral Regiment, that in the event of a conflict would move to smaller bases in the Ryukyu chain and in the Philippines to set up small operational bases where they use missiles as air defense and as standoff attack weapons. This is from the U.S. Marine Corps' website. It describes what a Marine Littoral Regiment is, what it does, its capabilities, and its structure. And of course, everything that I'm talking about here is going to be linked into the description. So in the event of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, which, spoiler at the end, I'm going to go into my thoughts on that very specifically. The Battle of the Six Seas is a ballistic missile battle. It's a ballistic missile and aircraft launched cruise missile battle. This will we've had aircraft carrier battles of hundreds of miles apart where the combatants never saw one another. We are now getting farther. We are now getting farther. China has a missile that can sink a naval aircraft carrier from 2,500 miles away. China's DF-26B is the ultimate aircraft carrier killer missile, and if it can indeed strike from 2,500 miles away, is it hype or reality? Well, we do know that they have the DF-21, which has a range of 1,000 miles, and that's been active for quite a while. And sounding warning bells becoming more and more accurate. We do know that the Chinese have launched and have successfully tested the DF-21 on moving targets. We do know that for a fact. This talks about the defenses that we could hopefully use against something like that, against the DF-26 or the DF-21. The U.S. is not without its own hypersonic. U.S. hypersonic missile blazes through at 5 times the speed of sound. And this hypersonic missile that we are developing here, the Dark Eagle, as it's called, the Dark Eagle is to be put on Zumwalt-class stealth destroyers, Virginia-class submarines, as well as launched from trucks, just like you would any other ground-based weapon system. It has a range of 1,725 miles. You notice a similarity between these two? Very similar in range. The capability is, their speeds are going to be very capable, around Mach 5. And the Zumwalt-class destroyer has been refit now to carry these missiles. The Zumwalt, which was considered a flop by many naval strategists, is now going to be the U.S. Navy's primary hypersonic missile carrier. A good use of the vessel. A good use of the vessel. So it's my contention that you will have long-range ballistic and hypersonic missiles attacking each other's fleets, thus creating basically a no-go zone within the 6 seas, because the range of those missiles covers all 6 of those seas. It goes into the Sulu Sea, the East China Sea, the South China Sea, the Yellow Sea, the Japan Sea, the Sea of Japan, and the Philippine Sea. All of those are covered by each other's missiles. By each other's missiles. This is not just China shooting their missiles off at us. We can do that to them as well using hypersonic and ballistic missiles. Their ballistic missile capability is far greater than ours, however. Their ballistic missile capability is in the thousands of small, short-range to medium-range ballistic missiles. And the problem that these ships have is that they have to defend against objects coming in this fast. Mach 5 to Mach 10. Very few things are going to be able to intercept anything that quick, anything that fast. The SM-6, the SM-3 standard missile systems on U.S. Navy ships can destroy those. They can intercept them. However, now with the Oreshnik, we're talking about a different kind of technology. What if one of these DF-26s now have the capability of dropping submunitions? What if one of the Dark Eagle hypersonic American missiles has the capability of dropping submunitions like you see right here? You can only defend so much. A ship only has so many missiles. There's only so many missiles. A U.S. destroyer carries approximately 90 to 100 missiles. Not all of them are air defense. Then there's the Phalanx close-in weapon system, which isn't stopping this. It isn't stopping that. So you have to think differently. You have to think out of the box. There's very few things that can defend against that. So for either Navy, basically from Guam to the Chinese mainland, from Japan to the Philippines, is going to be a missile death trap. This doesn't even include the submarines that are going to be hunting any ship in that area. So it becomes a logistical battle. The logistical battle of this is going to be incredible. China has a distinct advantage of distance. Our fight will be to keep a logistical train going all the way across the earth as we've done it before. We've done it once before. We're going to have to do it again. It's going to be a little different this time, but it's going to have to be done. The key to that might be our island of Guam, sitting right there with a great big beautiful port, and we have been arming the snot out of Guam. Our first look at the land-based Aegis missile defense system in Guam. We've gotten what appears to be our first view of the Mark 41 vertical launch system for the Aegis Ashore air defense system that has been installed on the highly strategic American island of Guam in the Pacific. The land-based Mark 41 launchers are one step towards addressing the vulnerabilities of the U.S. military base on the island of the attack, something that China in particular has directly referenced in context of a full-scale conflict in the region. Ultimately, Aegis Ashore on Guam will be just one element in plans to make the island's airspace the most heavily defended anywhere on Earth. This article, great article, of course everything will be linked here, talks about the Aegis onshore facility right there. All of this is open source. I am not telling anything out of school. If I did, and I never would, but if I did know anything that shouldn't be public, I would never tell the public anything. Most intriguing, however, is this photo showing the Mark 41 VLS array. The caption of the most actually describes tour of a different air defense system, the U.S. Army Thermal High Altitude THAAD battery on the island. And as you go through, this describes it, and this is the Aegis Ashore facility in Poland. This is what it looks like from the sky. And Aegis obviously has been a proven missile defense system for years. The U.S. Navy's incorporated. And it's reassuring to see that the United States is installing this on Guam, in Poland, and in other places. This is the erector set for the THAAD missile, a theater air anti-missile defense system, which the United States has to really, really reconsider the use of silos. We need to be more mobile. We need to be more mobile. We can't be just sitting there. We're sitting targets. But this article about the buildup of the air defense on Guam and the overall, I also have another article here about the one in Poland. I will link both. This is specifically about the tilting launcher, which is in itself an amazing piece of technology. A large box launcher that contains a certain amount of missiles that things like this, along with our Navy, are what's going to keep the logistical supply chain open from the United States all the way to the Philippines, all the way to Taiwan. Because here's the article that got me thinking long and hard about this. A defense of Taiwan with Ukrainian characteristics. Lessons from the war in Ukraine for the Western Pacific. And right here, millions of drones. I have watched hundreds of hours of drone footage of drones defeating tanks, armored personnel carriers, down to individual humans, unfortunately. And drone warfare has changed everything. I, at this point, believe the physical invasion in the World War II amphibious style of Taiwan is impossible. If Taiwan has taken any of the lessons from the war in Ukraine, it is now impossible for China to invade Taiwan. You would be able to attack any amphibious assault group with drones starting out at sea many tens of kilometers with standoff drone munitions such as this. This ship, although did not sink, is mission kill. Is mission killed. That's just the start. That's just the start. You have drones that attack large landing craft. This is the Project 775 large landing ship, and this is a Ukrainian drone attack craft attacking it. And if there's any question whether this was a successful attack, here it is. Clearly listing. It was clearly a successful attack. It didn't sink, but that's mission killed. It's my estimation that the physical invasion of China, of Taiwan by China, is no longer possible if the Taiwanese have taken the lessons from the Ukraine war. If they have, then there should be thousands of FPV drones, small drones, loitering munitions on standby, ready to go. As soon as there's anything sighted, troops are activated, those drones start flying. What about electronic warfare defense? Well, the success that's happening right now in Ukraine is due to wire-guided FPV drones on both sides, Ukrainian and Russian. So there can be no electronic interference. The nature of war has changed. And the main article, the starting article here of Mahan, Alfred Thayer Mahan, and his theory of naval dominance, I believe, has been displaced by the missile. You can't sail a ship like this into contested waters anymore. You just can't do it. If you do, this is what you're going to get. And unless you have directed energy weapons, which are still a little ways away, you're not stopping this. So what it becomes is a war of logistics. A war of logistics, getting supplies from the United States to Taiwan, to the Philippines, to Japan, in highly contested, missile-infested waters. Small ships, small vessels will be able to make it. I've long contended that something like this is something the U.S. Navy should be looking at.
Imagine a boat that glides effortlessly across the waves at 3 times the speed of typical marine craft, getting safely to your destination with style and comfort. The WiggitWorks Airfish 8 is a novel convergence of aviation technology and marine craft design. Its unique wing geometry and body structure exploits an aerodynamic phenomenon known as wing in-ground effect. An aircraft experiences ground effect when it flies in close proximity to the ground, producing additional lift from the increased air pressure beneath its wings. Flying above the sea's surface means that the Airfish 8 experiences no hydrodynamic drag, making it fuel efficient. Fuel consumption per mile per passenger is lower than conventional high-speed marine craft at high speed. Classified as a marine craft and powered by a car engine running on unleaded petrol, the Airfish 8 is simple to maintain and inexpensive to operate. With a payload of 1,000 kilograms, the Airfish 8 cruises at up to 90 knots with a range of 250 nautical miles. The Airfish 8 is simpler and safer compared to conventional aircraft. Its inherent aerodynamic stability and mechanical simplicity not only makes crew training quick, it also minimizes the risk of accidents caused by human error. The Airfish 8 can land immediately on the water below it with minimal control input should the need arise. The potential of the Airfish 8 is untapped and limitless. It is ideal for tourism, transport, logistics, and even maritime patrol in regions where infrastructure is limited. The Airfish 8 redefines maritime transportation with wing and ground effect technology to make passage to unexploited places more convenient, safe, and fast.
In places where infrastructure is limited, something like this would be perfect. Hiding in the thousands of islands of the Filipino archipelago, in the Ryukyu chain. Small craft. You're not using a ballistic missile on this. You're not firing a multi-million-dollar ballistic missile at this. Easily maintainable, able to hide in mangrove swamps, in rivers and streams, easily camouflaged, easily maintained with just regular gasoline, has V8 engines. What kind of weapons can you put? It has a 1,000-kilogram payload. I'm sure you could do a little work and increase that a little bit. Next thing you know, it's carrying 1 or 2 hypersonic missiles. Perhaps you go to India and you get the Brahma hypersonic missile. Maybe the U.S. develops one a little bit smaller. Maybe one fits on there. You scatter it about. Hundreds of them everywhere. Small, so small that it's not worth attacking with a multi-million-dollar missile. But you have it equipped with a multi-million-dollar missile just in case they're stupid enough to launch their aircraft carrier. There's options. There's options for naval dominance. That things are getting smaller. That, drones, self-loitering munitions. You've seen the Ukrainian Navy absolutely dominate the Black Sea. And they've done it without manned vessels. I don't think the invasion of Taiwan is feasible anymore. Airborne forces have to be supported. You have to logistically support them, and you can't do it. So now it becomes about air power, air dominance. Can you supply forces, countries, war efforts strictly by air from 6, 7, 8,000 miles across an entire ocean? We'll see. But the point of this, in the end, and everything you just saw and everything I just talked about and everything that's kind of lent me to this, will be linked in the description. I look forward to hearing some thoughts from you. I thank you, and I really appreciate you. And that's all I have.